Welcome everybody, the Hall of Fame 2024. Results and thoughts. Usually this is a night of praise, a night of celebration, and a night of thank yous, and honoring those being inducted into the Hall of Fame class. Paul Heyman, right in the heart of ECW in Philadelphia, getting inducted tonight. The legendary Bull Nakano. And then we had others coming into the fray. But the evening just kind of went on a nice, slow pace all the way to the end of the night for a very, very long and almost exhausting Hall of Fame. But let's go ahead and get in because I want to revisit it right now. Let's get in. So first up, we have Paul Heyman. And I thought Paul Heyman was going to be the headline of this class. Paul Heyman comes out to his old ECW theme. That's a nice pop for the ECW crowd. There's a loud ECW chant. Heyman embraces a couple legends of the past, Rob Van Dam, Tommy Dreamer, Bubba Ray Dudley. On his way to the ring, he hugs each of them. And Heyman gets in the ring and he embraces Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is the one to induct Paul Heyman here. I thought tonight's Hall of Fame induction actually played a little too much into modern storyline. And I'm not really a fan of that. This is a night that's meant to be a little bit different, a little bit special, where the storylines pause and the celebration commences. But we get Roman Reigns. I didn't hate the idea of him inducting Paul Heyman. I felt like Paul Heyman deserved maybe a couple inductees. Maybe a group of ECW guys right in the heart of Philadelphia. But I feel like the WWE did not terrible with Roman. Roman did a great job. There's nothing wrong there. But I just felt like they could have dug a little deeper. Got a little extreme. But starting the show off with Paul Heyman, as he walks in, the show started off hot. And I guess you had to do something. That crowd was sitting there waiting for the setup for at least a good 20 minutes. So Heyman looks like he's got tears in his eyes. You get a "you deserve it" chant. CM Punk's in the audience too. He's a Paul Heyman guy. You know who's not a Paul Heyman guy, or who is a Paul Heyman guy that's not in there, according to storyline? No Ryback tonight, folks. Hate to disappoint you. But Paul Heyman starts and he says, "You're damn right I deserve it." The crowd cheers and gives him a standing ovation. There was a word, there was some praises. They got into the mushy shit as, Paul Heyman tells his story about a Jew boy from the Bronx. He's never talked about himself as himself. Basically, RVD, he made a joke about RVD smoking a doobie. And then at that point, he looks at his son and CM Punk saying something to his son like, I think your dad just got you canceled, or got himself canceled. Heyman, being the first announcer, he was the first headliner, so to speak, to be announced by Paul Levesque, aka Triple H. A big Triple H chants come up. Heyman even says, he's kind of a Paul Levesque guy. So ultimately, Paul Levesque chants continue. Heyman wants to call attention to his lovely bride, Stephanie. He says if his daughter grows up to be half the woman that Stephanie McMahon is, he'll have raised a great lady in the household. Really, really great stuff from Paul here. It was very heartfelt, very appreciative. He just kind of wanted to wing it tonight, and I appreciated that. I felt like this should have been the main event of the evening. Did I say that already? Ultimately, though, makes a joke about Haku being there. Haku not in the Hall of Fame. I feel like he needs to be a future Hall of Famer, guys. He was in attendance tonight. But ultimately, Heyman finally gets into the enough effing around stuff. He has a big cardboard box sitting there, and he pulls out the classic Paul Heyman leather jacket from his ECW days. He's got the ECW wrestling hat. He's got the headset. He's got the cell phone. He's a little surprised. He's a little surprised that it is the actual cell phone and not just a prop from Paulie Dangerously in those days. He talks about WCW he goes a little bit into just overall ECW and how it lives in the hearts of wrestling today. And ECW did not die up the road, and that it lives in the hearts and the matches that we see in wrestling today. I like that. Paul's always a good speaker. Then Paul goes into a little bit of, you can tell the guys he's proud that he represented over the years. The CM Punk guy, the Brock Lesnar guy, and Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the head of the table. Paul did a great job talking about how being canceled got him more opportunity. And at the end of the day, he sees the future of the WWE in the likes of Braun Breaker, Rhea Ripley, Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams. He mispronounces Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill? Jade looked a little annoyed. I'm not going to lie. They cut to her. I think she was supposed to look happier. But ultimately, he was trying to give a compliment to the young up-and-comers. Well, at the end of that, he basically stated that you haven't seen anything yet. He's definitely not done. He's going to disrupt the business all over again. And that's not a prediction. That's a spoiler. Heyman bows to the crowd. His ECW theme plays. He shakes hands with Triple H and off he goes. Very, very good opening segment. I really thought this should have been the headliner. And I get why they wanted to get the crowd hot right away. But did they give people enough reason to stay around? Well, let's find out. Let's go to our next inductee. And that is the legendary Bull Nakano from Asia. She was a trainee and legendary All Japan women's pro wrestler. Bull Nakano started her and ended her wrestling career young, forced to retire due to injuries only at 29 years old. Before that, she established herself as one of the best Joshi wrestlers of the all-time greats, like Akira Hokuto and countless others. Perhaps Nakano's greatest accomplishment, however, was finding success of her native Japan, becoming a champion in Mexico for CMLL and in the United States for WWE. Bull Nakano comes out. She's going to be inducted by Medusa, Alundra Blaze of the WWF days. I remember the matchup they had at SummerSlam. I believe it was 1994. This was my first exposure to Bull Nakano prior to her WCW days. And I got to watch a little more of her. And I will say this, Bull Nakano and Akira Hokuto and some of the work that WWE started, or WWF at the time, started doing with them, along with WCW, got me exposed to other wrestlers over in Japan. I only read about them in magazines, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, those kind of things back in the day. Ultimately, though, Bull Nakano comes out after Alundra Blaze. You can feel the connection with Alundra Blaze and Bull Nakano. They had some of the greatest matches around the world. She was only 26 years old when she made it to the WWE. We get a thank you Bull chant. Bull Nakano, of course, comes out. She's got her face painted up. That hair's not spiked up, though, but it's still pretty good. She gave everything with her heart and a lot of emotion in this speech. Seriously, the crowd did a good job with her. She actually thanked Luna Vachon and was grateful for all the superstars. She thanked the WWE for this awesome opportunity. She did her best to not waste this opportunity. She thanks the WWE Universe, which accepted Bull Nakano. And she really gave like the most heartfelt speech of the night. It didn't feel scripted at all. And I really actually enjoyed Bull Nakano's brief induction into the Hall of Fame. Her and Medusa hug. And it's a very, very long time friendship there. You can feel it. That's what the Hall of Fame is meant to be, you guys. The Hall of Fame is meant to be heartfelt celebrations of the careers and what they've done for themselves and for the fans of the WWE Universe. So they pan out to Asuka, who obviously was influenced by Bull Nakano in her career. What about Io Shirai? All of them. She kind of trailblazed the pathway for him. Her and Alundra Blaze. You know, I kind of missed the chance to meet a London Blaze here a few months ago at a show, and kind of wish I would have done that. It's been really cool to see her. Basically, wonderful, heartfelt. Medusa presents her with flowers, and we got to top that. So there was 2 good opening acts in this one. And guys, as legendary JR used to say, business is about to pick up, or so you would think. And I'm going to be honest, for me, this is the part where the show kind of goes on a bit of a tailspin. I want to let you guys know I am a very huge Muhammad Ali fan. Not that I watched him in his prime, okay? My grandfather enjoyed Muhammad Ali's boxing, which made me go back and dig into the archives, watch documentaries, watch boxing matches on YouTube, right? Like, I tried to get anything I could about Muhammad Ali. I was in the Mike Tyson era. But ultimately, he influenced a generation of young talent. I mean, and he took some inspiration from pro wrestling, believe it or not. It was actually in his documentary on HBO that he got a lot of his persona from Gorgeous George of the 1940s. So what I say this is, Muhammad Ali had a history ingrained in professional wrestling. He took a character that he wanted to play from Gorgeous George and influence. His involvement didn't just end there, though. He also fought in New Japan under Antonio Inoki in an exhibition fight. He did some work with Gorilla Monsoon, and he was one of the 2 referees for the first ever main event in WrestleMania history, WrestleMania 1, with Hulk Hogan and Mr. T teaming up against Roddy Piper and Cowboy Bob Orton. That's why he's here, and it's appropriate for him to be in the WWE celebrity wing, if you will. Years later, Ali remained involved in wrestling as a guest of honor for the infamous Collision in Korea in 1995. So Ali has a history of WWE. And while he did pass away at the age of 74 after a long-fought battle with Parkinson's disease back in 2016, I remember that. The day kind of stood still a little bit, right? We find out now that The Undertaker is inducting Muhammad Ali. That's interesting. I was kind of a little shocked. I'm not going to lie. I was kind of hoping to see Muhammad Ali's daughter tonight, who also was a world female champion. I watched her fight. She was pretty cool, pretty badass. So Taker's in an all-black suit. He makes an appearance, and the fans are just, of course, it's Mania, right? It's Taker. Proof that The Undertaker's in the house this weekend. Just gonna say that little piece, because I talked about that in the video that I just did last night about the Taker possibly involved in Mania. I'll link that right up here. So at this point, Taker gives a quick but brief, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, gives a quick note, and then at this point, he wants to induct Muhammad Ali into the WWE Hall of Fame. And we get Muhammad Ali's wife, who's here to accept it. She knows that Ali lived his life with purpose to continue to inspire new generations. She says that Ali never learned to cook, but he also always had a sweet tooth. Muhammad loved people and they loved him. So again, we had a really good, just heartfelt interaction here, and I was really starting to like the Hall of Fame ceremony so far. And then, as we end Ali's introduction, we get an appearance by The Rock. And I felt like this situation was put here kind of on purpose to have The Rock kind of be the headline of this Hall of Fame ceremony. And that's when I realized Paul Heyman was not going to be the headline as far as scripting. And this is where the Hall of Fame becomes scripted. Not that, you don't write speeches, but ultimately The Rock comes down. Muhammad Ali's wife, it almost like mid-promo comes down, and she talks about how The Rock is the people's champion, just like Muhammad Ali. And then she presented him with a people's championship that Muhammad Ali would have wanted him to have, with the Brahma Bull on this championship. We get some boos from the crowd. The Rock makes his way out, he's presented with the custom People's Belt. It's very weird. It's very scripted. It felt very plugged. And I felt like we were now at night 1 of Mania, or maybe we're still in WWE's Friday Night SmackDown and we're now building and not actually celebrating success. So at this point, we get some heavy boos from the crowd. The Rock almost looked like he didn't know how to handle them. And he finally just says, all right, okay. And then he basically just kind of exited out gracefully. Made a quick appreciation for Muhammad Ali and peace out, Girl Scout. So at that point, The Rock leaves. And I'm thinking, we're going to see more of him tonight. Is this the Hall of Fame or the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? All right, so at this point, here's a little zoom in of that belt. It looks like they took, I don't know, World WWE Championship and plastered the Brahma Bull on it. It was a very weird segment. So at this point, I'm thinking, what is going on with the Hall of Fame? So then we're going to get into our next induction. It's the U.S. Express. All right, this is Barry Windham and Mike Rotunda. You might know them as Bray and Bo Dallas and Bray Wyatt's father, Mike Rotunda, and Barry Windham, their uncle. All right, so they were known for their tag team run from 1983 to 1986. And the two were one of the best tag teams in the NWA. So at this point, they held the championship. And then they were in the WWE tag titles twice between 84 and 85. It may not have been a long run, but the success shows that the brother-in-laws were great as a team. We get Bo Dallas and his sister to induct her uncle and dad. And at this point, we get the video package. We get a really nice little speech from Bo Dallas. And at that point, we then get the U.S. Express coming down. I will say, WWE was very weird with the bleeping tonight, right? But we do get wearing black with the red ties from the tag team. Probably an honorary thing tonight. But at this point, Mike Rotunda kind of starts going into when he was 8 years old, how he competed in a punt, pass, and kick competition at Franklin Field during a Steelers-Eagles game. Mike then says that he would have never gotten into the business if it wasn't for Syracuse University. So it felt like these guys were trying to connect with the crowd in a way they could. It's weird, right? Because I felt like they could have talked a little bit more about their careers, a little bit more about how they came together as a team. I felt bad, though, because you felt like the family was still mourning the loss of Bray Wyatt in this one. And I feel like this was the WWE's way of honoring the family a little bit. But let's talk about one thing here. The U.S. Express was involved in WrestleMania 1. And that's kind of the idea behind Triple H's thought of having them being inducted. I like the fact that we didn't go right to a Bray Wyatt induction this year, even though everybody wants to see that. I think it's going to come next year. But let's give the family time to mourn. And let's let them do this on their own process. Because remember, this wasn't a long fought battle. This was a very sudden loss to this family with a very young member. So it's hard for all these people in this ring tonight. And we actually did end on a very, very good note, celebrating Bray as the U.S. Express leads with the cell phones and the fireflies. And the crowd starts singing, "He's got the whole world in his hands." Mike puts up his phone. And at these two, kind of ends the segment for the U.S. Express, now WWE Hall of Famers. Not a bad segment. I appreciated the time they tried. I appreciate the fact that the family, I feel, was trying to put their best foot forward. And they were trying to go out there and do this, even though it's very hard for them to be in a wrestling ring. I felt that for them. So I wish them all the best in their process and how they work through all this in the next few years. So with that being said, the night's getting late, but we still got 2 more inductions left. So for the next induction, we got the New Day. First time we've seen the New Day, all 3 members together in a long, long time. We got Big E Langston. I know he's Big E, but he's still Big E Langston to me. we've got Xavier Woods, we got Kofi Kingston. They mention about Thunderbolt Patterson and the influence he had on the business. They talk about how if there wasn't for Thunderbolt Patterson, Xavier Woods would not be a king of the ring. Kofi Kingston would not be WWE champion. Big E wouldn't be a WWE champion, right? So they just kind of talk about their acolytes and how Thunderbolt Patterson was one of the wrestlers that paved the way for them. As we kind of go through here, you know, this was during the 70s, right? He fought very, very hard for, you know, racial discrimination during the 70s and even campaigned to form a wrestlers union at one point. I did not know that. I'll be the first to admit, I do not know anything about Thunderbolt Patterson. Okay, it's a little before my time, right? I was a little bit, you know, later on in the wrestling world, but I always appreciate going back and trying to just learn the history, right? He had the charisma. He could talk on the mic. You had Road Dogg Jesse James talking about how he ripped off some things of Thunderbolt Patterson without realizing it, but he just must have picked it up and kind of utilized stuff. But ultimately, Thunderbolt Patterson became an NWA Southern champion by beating Dusty Rhodes. This is one of the things I do like about the Hall of Fame. I like the fact that we're getting to see the pioneers. We're getting to learn about history. And you know what? I'm not going to lie. I am going to go back and on Peacock or on the WWE Network, I'm going to search for some Thunderbolt matches so I can see his style. So at that point, I do like that about the WWE Hall of Fame. We do get a speaker also speaking is Scott Spears is with Thunderbolt Patterson, helps give him an induction speech. I'll be honest, with this wrestler, with Patterson being as old as he is, you know, kudos for him getting out there. I actually thought this was a deceased wrestler going to be inducted tonight just due to the history and how many years ago it was. So kudos to him for still being in really good condition for his age. Thunderbolt gets on the mic. The crowd starts chanting. He talks about how, you know, he became, again, NWA Southern champion. And we get a nice little quick reflection. The night started getting late for me in this one, though. And this promo went a little too long for my liking. I think, you know, the whole WWE, we're trying to wrap things up at this point. It's WrestleMania weekend. And I was worried they're going to start playing him off with, you know, hitting his music and stuff. But, you know, again, you want to give the legends their time, too. So it's a tough wedge to fit. But I found myself very, very much struggling to get past this, knowing that we still have one more induction. And knowing that I got to see the inductions I really wanted to see, like Paul Heyman, right away. So it was an act of love for WrestleMania weekend, me kind of staying up and then being able to do this review for us. But ultimately, we get a wrap-up with Thunderbolt with some good messages. And then at that point, we're going to make our way to our final induction. And I'm a little worried that induction is going to go severely over. However, I will say, The Rock did his job. We get a promo of Liv Maivia, The Rock's grandmother, singing to his grandmother's grave in Hawaii. We get a video package narrated by the girl that actually played her in the Young Rock series, which was a nice little touch. But Leah took over the promotion from her husband after passing and told him on his deathbed that she would continue with the promotion and achieve his dreams. It's interesting. So she ran the promotion for years and then helped develop stars. And at that point, The Rock comes out. The Rock is giving the ceremony speech. The Rock actually, for Miss Maivia, he actually goes over, gives a nice quick speech, and I will say this, The Rock did a really good job of wrapping up this Hall of Fame very quickly. I was a little worried that this would go another 15, 20 minutes, and I was like, oh no. But I gotta hand it to The Rock. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to cut it quick. I don't think he wanted to mess around with this crowd tonight either. because they were a little unpredictable in the earlier segment when he tested the waters with the Brahma Bull Championship, the People's Championship. And you notice The Rock didn't bring that belt out with him. I think that was originally part of the plan, but it didn't go so hot, so I think he just kind of left it at the back. So ultimately, The Rock comes out, he hugs everyone, he gives the speech, talks about his grandma a little bit, and we're good. But then, The Rock actually basically gives a lesson on the territories. He mentions Vince McMahon. The crowd boos a little bit. The Rock mentions Dusty Rhodes, and that says he's one of his heroes. And then The Rock starts going into cutting a promo against Cody. Cody stands up, and Rock says he has respect for Dusty. He has love for Mama Rhodes. But when it comes to this weekend, what happens between the four of them is personal and not business, and he will see them tomorrow night. A Cody chant starts from the crowd. And at that point, we get the main event here really being about The Rock kind of selling over WrestleMania with Cody. And I feel like, again, this is where the WWE goes into the areas that I don't really care for. I think one sentences are okay, but I'm definitely not a fan of when they just kind of go all full character, all full story. And I know, The Rock was the inductor and he accepted on behalf of his grandmother. I appreciate that he wrapped up really quick, but I hated that it felt like another planned segment to lead us into night one of WrestleMania. So guys, let's get into the overall final thoughts on the WWE Hall of Fame 2024. So I want to say WWE Hall of Fame 2024, the highlights really started at the beginning of this show. For me, it was Paul Heyman. Right in the heart of Philadelphia, Paul Heyman definitely stole the show in the evening. And following up with Bull Nakano with a very heartfelt Mania moment of Hall of Fame, and just really heartfelt. And the connection with her and Medusa was very real. Which kind of brings me to my other final thought and point. The WWE's got to be careful with how we choose who inducts the legends of the past. I always like when there's a genuine connection there. And I'm going to give you a great example. Last year, Hall of Fame 2023, we had Conan give one of the best Hall of Fame induction speeches I've ever seen in the history of the Hall of Fame for his very good long-term friend, Rey Mysterio Jr. If you guys didn't see that review, I'll link it right up here. But ultimately, I felt like after the Bull Nakano in the beginning of the Ali touch base, it turned into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And it was just a show that kind of really pushed a narrative in the second half with a little mix of some genuine stuff in the middle. So ultimately, that's my final thoughts, and I'll see you guys the rest of WrestleMania weekend. It's not goodbye. It's game over.